Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Here are the stories we're following today.
Karen, it is the morning after the election, and Donald Trump has pulled off one of the most stunning political comebacks in American history. The former president is now president-elect once again, winning the White House, claiming 277 Electoral College votes so far to Kamala Harris's 224. Donald Trump appeared before his supporters in West Palm Beach, Florida, early this morning after the networks called the Blue Wall State of Pennsylvania in his favor.
I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president.
Donald Trump is projected to win Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. He is also ahead in Michigan and now promising to bring the country together.
We're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly.
And Trump is pledging to get tough on an issue that he emphasized throughout his campaign: immigration.
We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that.
President-elect Donald Trump is declaring it a magnificent victory for the American people.
Well, Nathan joining Trump on stage in West Palm Beach to celebrate his running mate, J.D. Vance.
Well, Mr. President, I appreciate you allowing me to join you on this incredible journey. I thank you for the trust that you placed in me. And I think that we just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America.
The 40-year-old J.D. Vance is poised to become the third youngest vice president in history.
And Karen, we have yet to hear from Kamala Harris. The vice president watched the results roll in from her alma mater, Howard University in Washington. We do expect her to make remarks later this morning. Along with the Electoral College count, Donald Trump leads in the popular vote as well, with nearly 72 million votes to Kamala Harris's 66.7 million.
Well, Nathan, we have plenty of reaction to Donald Trump's win this morning. His victory is historic. He'll be the first former president to return to power since 1892. We get more with Bloomberg political contributor Jeannie Zaino.
In the aftermath, a lot of questions are going to be asked, including why didn't she choose the very popular governor of Pennsylvania as her running mate? Why did she go instead with the governor of Minnesota?
Bloomberg political contributor Jeannie Zaino says at 78, Trump would be the oldest person elected to the office.
Well, Karen, let's move past the presidential race for just a moment. We'll get you caught up on some other key election results as well. Republicans have secured control of the Senate with 51 seats at least. Control of the upper chamber of Congress is in Republican hands for the first time in 4 years. In Ohio, the seat held by Democrat and Senate Banking Chairman Sherrod Brown flipped to Republican Bernie Moreno, who secured 50.2% of the vote. Sherrod Brown conceded defeat after finishing with 46% of the tally.
Tonight I'm sad, but I'm never giving up, and neither is Connie.
No way.
In the light of day, I know most of you are never giving up either.
Meantime, in West Virginia, Jim Justice, the former Republican governor, won Joe Manchin's open Senate seat. He defeated Democrat Glenn Elliott 8.9% to 27.6%. Republican Deb Fischer in Nebraska overcame a tough challenge from Democrat Dan Osborne. She won 53% to 46%. Those three races did secure the GOP's Senate majority. Other notable contests were decided in Republicans' favor. In Texas, Ted Cruz fended off Democrat Colin Allred, winning 53% to 44%. Republican Pete Ricketts of Nebraska defeated Democrat Preston Love 63 to 37%. Florida Republican Rick Scott won his race over Democrat Debbie Muckersall Powell 55 to 42%. In Pennsylvania, Republican Dave McCormick is looking to unseat Democrat Bob Casey. McCormick is ahead, but he's stopping short of declaring victory.
In the coming days, the election results will be finalized. And when they are, we will look forward to a new agenda.
Dave McCormick leads that Senate race in Pennsylvania 49 to 48%, with 96% of the votes counted. And Republican Tim Sheehy is trying to flip Democrat John Tester's seat in Montana. 77% of the votes counted there, and Sheehy currently leads 53 to 44%.
Still, Nathan, Democrats did secure some victories in the upper chamber of Congress. California Democrat Adam Schiff defeated Republican Steve Garvey with 58% of the vote. New York Democrat Kirsten Gillibrand was reelected, defeated GOP challenger Michael Sapercone 58 to 41%. Massachusetts Democrat Elizabeth Warren won a third term as senator, cruising to victory over John Deaton with 60% of the vote. And Democrats are closely following Ruben Gallego's race in Arizona. The Democrat leads Republican Carrie Lake 50 to 47%, with just about 60% of the vote counted. And there were two other historic wins in the Senate for Democrats. Lisa Blunt Rochester won a seat in Delaware over Republican Eric Hansen, garnering 56% of the vote. And Angela Also Brooks of Maryland defeated former Republican Governor Larry Hogan 52 to 45%. Their victories will mark the first time two black women will serve together in the Senate.
Okay, Karen, let's take a look at results for the U.S. House now. Democrats need a net gain of 4 seats to take control and fend off a Republican sweep. There are still uncalled races, but right now GOP holds a lead, 196 to 179. Democrats picked up a seat in Alabama's newly drawn 2nd district. Shamari Figures defeated GOP challenger Caroline Dobson 54 to 45%. In Louisiana, Democrat Troy Carter defeated multiple Republican challengers with 60% of the vote. Democrats also won Illinois' 17th district this morning. Eric Sorensen defeated Republican Joe McGraw 53 to 46%. Democrats are also looking to flip Iowa's District 1 seat. GOP incumbent Marionette Miller Meeks and Democrat Christina Bohannon are tied at 50% apiece with 97% of votes counted. Republicans are performing well in Midwest states. In Michigan's 7th district, the GOP's Tom Barrett flipped the seat. He defeated Democrat Curtis Hurdle with 50% of the vote. In Pennsylvania's 8th district, Republican Robert Bresnahan leads incumbent Democrat Matt Cartwright with 51% of the vote. That race still too close to call. In Pennsylvania's 7th district, incumbent Democrat Susan Wild trails Republican challenger Ryan McKenzie. That's a tight race as well, currently at 50.7% to 49.3%. And in Pennsylvania's 10th district, GOP incumbent Scott Perry is holding on to a tight lead over Democratic challenger Janelle Stelson. 98% of the votes are counted there, and that race is at 50.8% to 49.2%. In North Carolina, Democrat Don Davis leads Republican Lori Buckhout for the state's 1st district with 49.5% of the vote. In Virginia, Eugene Vindman is looking to replace fellow Democrat Abigail Spanberger, who is not running for re-election. Vindman leads the GOP's Derek Anderson 51 to 49% with 99% of votes counted. And two incumbents are fighting to hold on to seats in tight races elsewhere. Nebraska Republican Don Bacon leads Democrat Tony Vargas 51.2 to 48.8%. And Democrat Jared Golden of Maine is up 50.8 to 48.9% over Republican Austin Terrio.
And other high-profile House wins, Nathan, include House Speaker Mike Johnson. He defeated GOP challenger Joshua Morit with a whopping 85% of the vote. Texas Democrat Henry Cuellar defeated Republican Jay Furman 52 to 47%. Former Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi crushed Republican Bruce Liu with 80% of the vote. And in Delaware, Democrat Sarah McBride beat GOP challenger John Wayland 57 to 42% in Delaware's sole congressional district, becoming the first openly transgender member of Congress.
Well, Karen, the battle for the House could ultimately come down to tight races in California, and they might not be decided till next week due to absentee ballot rules. Notable races there include Republican Mike Garcia. He's in a tough contest with Democrat George Whitesides in California's 27th district. Garcia leads 51.1% to 48.9%. Incumbent Democrat Dave Min trails the GOP's Scott Baugh 50.6 to 49.4% in California's 47th district. Will Rollins is looking to unseat longtime Republican Ken Calvert of the 41st district. Rollins leads the GOP candidate 50.3 to 49.7%. 65% of the votes are counted there. And Republican John Duarte is in a rematch with Democrat Adam Gray in the 13th California district. The GOP incumbent currently leads 51 to 49% with about half of votes counted.
All right, Nathan, there were also some ballot measures up for a vote in states last night, from decisions on abortion restrictions to legalizing marijuana. Bloomberg's Michael Barr joins us now with the details. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. Several states had pro-abortion rights items on the ballot. In Florida, an abortion ban after 6 weeks remains in effect. A right to an abortion failed. Arizona voters said yes on abortion rights, 63% to 37%. In Montana, they approved an abortion rights amendment to the state's constitution. Missouri voters said yes to abortion rights, 52% to 48%, changing from a total ban. Voters in Nebraska had competing abortion amendments. Voters agreed to keep a 12-week abortion ban in effect, 55% to 45%. South Dakota voted against abortion rights, 61% to 39%, keeping a total abortion ban. Colorado voted for abortion rights, 61% to 39%. Nevada voted for abortion rights. The current law is a 24-week ban. Maryland voted for reproductive freedom, 74% to 26%. New Yorkers passed an amendment to bar discrimination on the basis of pregnancy outcomes. It passed 62% to 38%. Increases to the minimum wage are on the ballot in several states. In California, an increase, the minimum wage from $16 to $18, 54% in. No is ahead, 52% to 48%. Massachusetts rejected a minimum wage hike from $15 an hour. The vote is 64% against to 36-4. Several states considered whether to legalize marijuana. Florida said no. South Dakota is on a path to legalize pot with 80% of the vote in. It's leading 57% to 43%. North Dakota, it looks like pot will be illegal, 53% to 47%. Voters in Nebraska approved medicinal marijuana, 71% to 29%. New York had 5 other ballot proposals. Proposal 2 allows the sanitation department increased authority to keep all city property clean. It's up 62% to 38%. Ballot Proposal 3 requiring a fiscal analysis, 70% in, up 56% to 44%. Ballot Proposal 4 calls for more notice before votes on public safety legislation. It's up 57% to 43%. Ballot Proposal 5, capital planning, up 58% to 42%. And Ballot Proposal 6, it would create a new role to support minority and women-owned business enterprise. It's up 53% to 47%. That's a look at the results on ballot measures this morning. In New York, I'm Michael Barr, Bloomberg Radio.
Appreciate that, Michael. Thank you. Donald Trump, the 45th president of the United States, is now projected to become the 47th president of the United States, currently with an electoral college vote count of 277. Let's get more analysis. We are joined by 2 key members of our Bloomberg Politics team, Bloomberg News managing editor Derek Wallbank and our senior editor Bill Ferries. Gentlemen, good morning. Derek, we knew the battleground states were going to be tight. The polls showed it. The results show it as well. I think maybe the one thing that wasn't predicted was just how quickly this result would be declared. Good morning.
Good morning, Nathan. And yes, it has all, if you sort of figure it was a bit on a knife edge in terms of all of the polling, and you said, well, each of these individual swing states could go one way or the other. Now, they're not all called, but it looks like pretty much everything has gone in Trump's direction. I think particularly one of the things you and I were talking about in conversations leading up to Election Day was what was going to happen with Donald Trump's pulling in rural voters and turning them out at levels Democrats were surprised by, up against maybe a gender gap advantage for Harris. Well, it turned out that there was a gender advantage gap for Trump. He really was successful in turning out male voters who had not gone for Republicans quite so much, and Harris did not make similar inroads among female voters. And indeed, if you look across the U.S., this is not really a situation other than about Metro Atlanta where you can say that there was anything other than a uniform swing. It was a pretty uniform swing towards Donald Trump across the nation.
Interesting as well, Bill, to see that uniform swing in not just the rural vote, but in the gender gap vote, when for the most part, we saw a number of abortion ballot measures go to pro-abortion rights victories. That did not seem to be enough to give Kamala Harris a wave.
Right. There was a bet by Democrats, including, petitioning to have some of these measures put on the ballots in different states as a way of juicing turnout and helping Harris. But we are seeing quite a bit, you're seeing quite a bit of ticket splitting in the breakdown of how people are voting. So, people may have voted for Donald Trump, but also voted for abortion rights at the same time. Like they were able to sort of keep those two things together. So very interesting to see that. I think as Derek was saying, kind of across the board, you see Trump overperforming across demographic groups, pretty much across almost, sort of every group you can think of, and Harris underperforming. So, we spent this sort of election eve watching, nuggets of good news come in for the Trump campaign and not really seeing any breaks at all for the Harris campaign. And, you're seeing that now in the popular vote total and what's turning out to be, a pretty impressive showing by the Trump campaign across that vaunted blue wall that the Harris campaign said was their last firewall.
On that blue wall, Derek, how do you account for the overperformance by former President Trump? Is there going to be some soul searching on the Democratic side about whether they should have ushered President Biden out of the race in states that he did quite a bit better in 4 years ago?
Well, Nathan, I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching from Democrats. And indeed, I don't think that you take an election like this. And it was narrow in terms of the popular vote, but it was wide enough. I don't think that you take a loss like this and not look really deep in and sort of figure things out. Sometimes in a very close race, you can say any one thing might have made the difference. In a very wide race, you really do have to look back and say, okay, what were the sort of national trends? What were the things people were feeling? I mean, look, there's been a big disconnect, and you look at this blue wall states, especially, right? States I know very, very well. Mm-hmm. You're looking at these issues like the economy, and for all of the things that people might say that are positive signs, if you're looking at the idea of I want to get a house, I want to have kids, and I might have to pay for daycare, I want to save for those kids' college, and I got to pay for health care. All of those things are very expensive compared to where they were 20, 30 years ago. And so you have all of these voters who are coming into the economy over the last, the last little while, last 20, 30 years, who are saying, I don't really feel like I've got as good a shot to hit that American dream as my parents did. And that's a very profound thing to think, right? And so as much as we can talk about, stock markets doing this, how's the US dollar against, various other currencies, at the end of the day, there really is a simple question of, do you feel better now than you did 4 years ago? And whatever people want to say, voters in a lot of these swing states really did come out and say, not really.
Trade is very important in these blue wall states, Bill. So is immigration. We've heard former President Trump promise huge tax cuts, tariffs on the rest of the world, and a massive deportation if he returns to the White House. In our last minute, Bill, what do you see Trump 2.0 actually pulling forward?
I think he's going to use that threat of tariffs as leverage against a lot of countries, rivals and allies as well. So I don't know that we get a flat tariff across on all imports, but I think he's going to try to use that as a wedge against other countries to try to get them to buy more American goods or to compete more favorably on trade. I think on immigration, I think the focus is going to be on looking at people who have criminal records and trying to deport them first. I don't think there's going to be an effort to deport 13 million people, but I think he's going to start making progress on some of that agenda he promised.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak, your morning podcast on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed by 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 92.9 in Boston, and nationwide on Sirius XM Channel 121.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, now with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto interfaces.
And don't forget to subscribe to Bloomberg News Now. It's the latest news whenever you want it, in 5 minutes or less. Search Bloomberg News Now on your favorite podcast platform to stay informed all day long. I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.